Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Thanks for tuning in to the Shedcast. We're back again, so great to see you all. Special guest interview today, really special is what I would say. This gentleman, I would say, won the lottery of life. Some might say he's a bit of a charity superhero. I, however, would say he's been a long-standing colleague of mine, but more importantly, a friend. I hopefully classify him as a friend. Really interesting stories around his background, his history, what he's been up to. So without further ado, I give you Martin Edwards. Brilliant. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Thanks, Simon, and thanks for a wonderful introduction as well. Very, very kind.
No, well, I know you're a very modest man, but sometimes modesty is honesty.
No, totally. But yeah, it's good. It's good to see you as always.
A pleasure. So, just for the guys who don't know who you are, maybe just a brief introduction of what you do at Collier's, how long you've been there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Martin Edwards.
I've already said that.
I joined Collier's in.
I'm glad you know.
I joined Collier's. Well, what was Conrad Rippler in 2000.
Right.
Wasn't even the same department name at the time, APM, but it sort of in 2006, 2007 it changed to IPM. So I was fortunate to become a director at that point of IPM in Birmingham. So, it wasn't a very well animal at the time, as in, we didn't have a very big team. The revenues were not where we wanted them to be. And then since that point, I've continued to head up that department in the Midlands.
And massively grow. I mean, I've seen it. I've worked. You were there before me. I joined. You've been there for a period of time. I'm coming up to 24 years. You've done. Is it 30 years?
Well, not at Collier's. This is my 26th year at Collier's.
Right. But I've seen the roller coaster of your division, your sector. But where it was and where it is now is just night and day. In my view, from an external looking in and how you've grown that business, but the rest of the team as well, it's a collaborative thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm very lucky to have the people in the team that we've got. We've got some amazing people, but at that time it was 3 people, and now it's 20.
Wow.
And it's multi-million pound sort of representation of fees as opposed to what it was then, which was very, very small. We're acting as a team nationally for, the usual type of clients, funds, institutions, pension funds, property holding companies, developers, private individuals, property holding companies.
So across the piece, all sorts.
All sorts, and then I think different sectors. So, multi-let office buildings, industrial. We do shopping centres, so Rachel, who worked with me a long time, she heads up nationally the shopping centre team, from Birmingham, so that's really good, that's growing. And I think, where we stand with property management, it's a great offering. We're always evolving with what we're offering, and the service delivery is very, very high.
I know you're very proud of that. Having, we work together in the office, and you see, it's about delivering that excellence, isn't it? That's what you are about, you and your team.
I think it's understanding client objectives. It's not an off-the-shelf cookie-cutter service. We're very tailored. And that's really important. And some of the clients we're now seeing coming through are, more international or stronger clients where they expect a very high level of service delivery, customer experience, ESG, tech, as well as the standard property management, which is the financials, the occupier liaison, occupier management. So it's changed and evolved as a service over the years, and I think it feels like we're at the forefront of that. and it's great. I love it. I love my
job. Well, you've still got that spark. You've still got that fire in you. But I think, as I say, you've been there 26 years, director. More importantly, a cancer survivor, an author, and a charity ambassador. Which how you fit everything into your life, I don't know. But you are a very, very, as I say, modest man. There must be lots going on under the water, but you seem to serenely go through life at a steady pace. We'll touch on one of the most important things, or one of the important things, particularly for you, is we'll talk about the if you don't mind, the cancer piece later on. But yeah, I mean, it's how did you end up? You just show me a plaque that you retrieved from a skip. You went to Bristol Poly, is that right?
Yeah, it was Bristol Poly when I joined. I tried to sort of get onto a different course, but I ended up at Bristol Poly, and I think I wasn't that successful with GCSEs or A levels, but.
Perfect, you're a chartered surveyor. Join the club. I'm exactly the same.
But I think I ended up at Bristol Poly. I don't even think it was a degree course, it was a diploma course. Right. But after the first year, it became University of the West of England. So the sign I've just shown you is possibly the only Bristol Poly sign in existence.
It's got some value then.
Which was in a skip.
Right.
It had already been thrown away. We didn't steal it as such. And it was foggy. But it is now in the man cave at the bottom of the garden.
Yeah.
So yeah. But Bristol was lovely. It's great city, Bristol, and
good vibe.
Really good uni. Sort of people I'm still in contact with, which is great.
Mm. Yeah. No, super. Also, I mean, interestingly, it was sort of dotting around, but I think that's the way your story is. You touched on what you've done, or what the business is doing now, or your department is doing now. But one of the most interesting things was, and I remember this, you were going backwards and forwards to Malta, and I'm like, Martin, you're going on your holidays again? He's like, no, it's work. I'm like, of course it is, Martin. Yeah.
I think it comes back to that service delivery. A call had come through to the London office, and there was nobody there to take the call for some reason. This is way back in 2006, something like that. And I said, I'll take the call. And then next thing is, the voice says, I'm putting you through to the Prime Minister's right-hand man. And I thought, okay.
Is this somebody winding me up?
We talked about what their requirement was. Again, always trying to understand the objective of the client. They had a 30 million square foot industrial portfolio.
Wow.
And I think from a strategic property management advice, how do we manage it? How do we have strategies around that? So yeah, look, this is what it will cost to come out. And, we were looked after very well, put up in very good hotels. A fellow director and myself went out. And yeah, I think I went back there 9 times to complete the piece of work. We met some wonderful investors out there, and obviously the government themselves went to Gozo as well, which is part of their portfolio. So really good fun, and I think that sort of ability within Colliers that you're allowed to push a little bit into, different areas or slightly different contexts of what you do or what we do in the Midlands. So that was nice. We've done similar in Gibraltar a couple of years ago as well.
Okay, another holiday, was it?
So yeah, it was a little bit part holiday, part work, but yeah, very, very good, very interesting. Definitely go again. If anybody's got any opportunities abroad,
has passport, will travel.
That's it.
And the team thing. So I know going back again, it's because I think it's all driven by how you push the team on, etc. But the IPM team won the Colliers EMEA Innovation Award in 2012, and then there was a Community Award in 2018. What did what does that mean? How does that come about, and what did it mean to the team?
I think within Collier's EMEA, I think the awards they run is quite important. If you look at the amount of, we had somebody in the team nominated this year for the Leadership Award. And I think if you look at the amount of countries and offices that covers, and on the Teams call I was on recently for that award ceremony, I watched it. There were over 500, 600 people on Teams watching the award ceremony. I think a lot of our EMEA offices take it very, very seriously. I think with the Innovation Award, we'd really tried to understand. It was a client in Digbeth. I think it was the development arm of the Canal Riverside Trust, and they'd very much been trying to, at a very, very early stage, create placemaking, create customer experience, create destination to bring occupiers in. And we'd really been good at accompanying them on that journey and being innovative, really trying to bring in a graduate to our team where the graduate was half on site permanently, almost painting walls in Dungarees one day, but also then in Collier's the next. And I think the approach we'd adopted to how we innovated around the client objectives was really clever. We got nominated for an award and won it.
Yeah.
So that's very good. I think with 2018, this is post the cancer story. I'd wanted to give something back. I think as having recovered from cancer in a charity way, but also to support the people that had been around me when I was suffering. So I thought, look, we'll do this event. I'll create an event, and once we've raised some money, we'll give it to charity. So that event was called Treasure Quest.
We can talk about that maybe in a bit.
Yeah, so I think on the back of that, what we were doing for the community, that
it was recognised.
It was recognised that I'd sort of come up with something to give back, and very much involved the community. So we had suppliers, we had colleagues, friends who weren't in Collier's, a lot of people, I think, that
the wider Collier's family, as we'd probably call it.
Yeah, and then I think, you're really trying to give back to the community, and we can talk about the charity piece. It's a great charity, and they do a hell of a lot for the community. So.
And another string to your bow, you've got loads, haven't you? You've always been a team player. And I think that's probably because of what you've done, and that's probably why you operate within the division that you are. But I remember you telling me a lot about this. You worked. You were a volunteer for SARA. What did that involve? And for people who don't know what SARA is, maybe you could just spell it out.
Yeah, so Severn Area Rescue Association do all the lifeboat rescue work on the River Severn, and it's an 80-mile stretch of river, so all the way from way up Shropshire all the way down to the estuary, second highest tide in the world, dangerous waterway, Severn Bore, is probably one of the well-known tidal flows coming up the river. I've never surfed it.
No. Maybe
not sure
should.
I want to.
Maybe you should.
But we had 4 lifeboat stations. One at Wyre Forest, one Tewkesbury. Tewkesbury, obviously, an area which flooded very heavily at one point. One at Sharpness, and one at Beachley, which either side of the old Severn Bridge. Different boats for dealing with the waterway. About 150 volunteers when I was there. I think I wanted something else in my life, so I volunteered as operational crew, did all the training, did my powerboat qualifications, did my swiftwater rescue qualifications. The charity did sort of lowland mountain rescue as well as blue light boat rescue. Would get called out by the ambulance, fire brigade, police, So my wife and I ended up on the executive of Sarah at the time, and yeah, it was good. I'd be sat in the office, page would go off, and then you
toddle, you jump in your boat.
You sort of dash back to Kidderminster. A lot of the time you get stood down, but yeah, I loved it.
Proper action man stuff, though.
But the people who, some of the people who are dedicated to that charity and what they do was amazing. I think you're relying on people to risk their own lives to go looking for other people, and
fair play. I know you really got involved. You really loved it, but that's always been. You always hide. I'd say you hide your light under a bushel sometimes, because you are. I know I've historically read stuff about you as a child or as a teenager, and you've behind the mask is a bit of an action man, bit of a you like a challenge, you like not danger, but
Yeah, I think it's
life's for living, I suppose.
Yeah, obviously now I live on a day-to-day basis almost, as in you wake up, you're still here. But I think what can you do? What energy can you put into something else? I love my job, putting energy into that. I think some of the charity work I do, it's good to have that energy. Over the years, I think there's been things where I've put energy in, Sarah being one of them. There was another event I did called Vigor, where, that was, going up Penny Fan and, then double canoeing down through the River Wye and the Killaluk mountain bike route, all in one event. So
wow.
It's almost 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and we had firemen, army people, civilians doing it. I think, and then again for charity, but I think those type of events, or what can I do? Can I do more? Yeah, I
you love a challenge.
I like the interest. I know you with your cycling, go and do some immense challenges and but bouncing cycling and everything. But it's what interests you, I guess, as well.
Yeah, it's horses for courses, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, superb. So, as I say, I've known you for 24 years, but I think one of the most pivotal points in our relationship was it was a Valentine's night, yeah, and it was a sad day because I remember. We drove up. We drove up to Newcastle upon Tyne. We were driving to Johnny Irwin, who was a colleague, a friend, who tragically died of cancer at an early age, and we went up to pay our respects. But during that journey, we're driving from Birmingham to Newcastle, so it was 4 hours, whatever it was. It's how, and I put this to everybody: is spend some quality time with somebody who you think you might know. And then you get to know them really, really well. And it was a humbling, amazing sort of drive there and back. It was quite, exciting, but it was. But I think hopefully we got to know each other really, really well.
Definitely.
I saved your life that night.
You did.
He snores, by the way.
So apparently, Nobby said I was the worst snorer he'd ever heard in his life.
We were sharing a room, but it was a twin room, to be clear.
And my wife would concur with that opinion. I think she'd at the time sort of often, sort of opted for the spare room because of the snoring. I think I did. I think it wasn't so much the snoring. I think you were pointing out I wasn't breathing.
You weren't breathing
between the snoring. So it's 10 times worse, isn't it? That you're sort of making this horrific noise, which sounds like a pig being
conveyed to that,
something or other. But I think the gaps in between where I wasn't breathing, I did then go and get that checked out, and I was diagnosed with severe sleep apnea, which is very serious because the next day after you've slept, your blood is not getting the oxygen or hasn't got the oxygen from the night before. So, you're at a higher risk of heart attack, you're at a higher risk of stroke. So I was diagnosed with this, which means you have over 60 episodes of not breathing properly between snoring in an hour. So, you're talking a significant amount of not getting the oxygen in. So I now have a mask each night, which is look a little bit like, Top Gun, obviously, but no, it's just literally this with a Hoover pipe coming from the mask.
A gimp.
Or a gimp, yeah.
Oh, it's pushing oxygen down and opening the airways, I assume, is it?
It's not oxygen even, it's air.
Okay.
It just forces, it's pressurised air.
Okay.
So the mask sits on your face, it's sealed, and then it pushes air in. But that,
saved your life, that's what I'm going to say. I've saved your life.
I think you did, ironically. And the amount of energy you get because you wear this.
Yeah. You feel recharged fully,
Yeah, I mean, the bounce you get from wearing it,
yeah,
it's obviously doing some of the job that your body should be doing anyway.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if your partner snores or has
severe,
go and see the doctor, because
yes,
there's living proof that, if you nip it in the bud quickly, you can find a resolution.
Yes, do what Nobby says and do go out and get yourself checked out.
Yeah, and that leads us on to 2016. Now, this is a story that puts, in my opinion, everything else into perspective. I mean, you were, in my eyes, a lottery winner of life. I'm sure, hopefully, you think that as well. But you were diagnosed with stage 4 bowel cancer.
Yeah.
Can you take us back to that moment, if you want to?
No. That's fine. I think. I've been playing quite a bit of hockey at the time. What the actual cause of it is, you never know with cancer. It can be environment, it can be hereditary, it can be, through injury, it can be through something else. We just don't know. I think as humans, all of the time. I had been hit by a hockey ball just above my pelvis, and the pain didn't seem to go away. Was that what caused it? I don't know. But then I'd had symptoms of sort of blood in my stool.
Yeah.
Again, if you have any blood in your stool, you should go and get it checked out. It's not the easiest thing to look for, and nobody likes looking in the loo, but it is quite important.
I always look behind every day.
Do you?
I think it's an important thing, particularly you get to our age, we are what we would say we're in Sniper Alley. So look for those signs, those telltale signs and clearly you picked up on that, didn't you?
Yeah. So I think then it's a case of I was falling asleep a little bit on the train as well.
Right. Lack of energy and
a little bit of lack of energy. Obviously, this pain and then these symptoms. Did go and see a GP a few times, and I think, was passed off generally as, something else, straining too hard, not enough fibre. There's sometimes these types of things. I then booked a Bupa medical because, we're fortunate we can do that within Colliers, and the Bupa medical was over in Worcester, and at the end of those medicals, you get a good opportunity to have a chat with the doctor. And the chat was, well, you're fitter than you were 5 years ago, or your signs, body mass index, all this is better than 5 years ago. It's not now, I can tell you. But I think the chat at the end was, is there anything else? And it was very much, well, I've seen a GP about these symptoms. And that was when she decided she'd do a prostate check. And she said, well, I can't find anything that's blood or anything else, which is fine. But she said, if it is blood and it is what you're saying, you need to have a day case sigmoidoscopy or endoscopy, colonoscopy rather. So I took a while to book that, maybe a couple of months, and then it was in my head.
Because you were frightened?
I think part of my brain was saying, well, you're fit and healthy, you're fitter than you were 5 years ago. You're playing quite a rough contact sport, and I was still playing hockey and still managing. But then I did book it, and I did go into, the Nuffield in Hereford, which is our local sort of hospital and private hospital, and they did a sigmoidoscopy. I have to say, without sedation. I probably recommend sedation if anybody is going for that procedure.
Right.
But I could then see on the screen sort of what looked like the Malverns with, blood coming out of it,
really,
sort of in my bowel tract.
Right.
And then they wouldn't let me leave the hospital until my wife got there, and I think it was and that was about 3 hours of waiting.
That must have been so scary.
Well, I hadn't had any sedation, so I was like, look, I'm fit, ready to go. I'll come back. No, you've got to stay. Wait for the surgeon to come back and your wife to arrive. And then it was right. You both need to sit down. This is very serious. And I think that's when they said, look, from what I can see, this looks like very aggressive bowel cancer, and it's already very developed. And then it was a case of, well, we need to scan it and everything else. So I was in for a CT scan very quickly, and then the results of that came back very quickly, and it's worse than what we've seen. There's actually 7 spots on your liver, and we think this might be something else.
Wow.
So then it was straight into an oncologist, and the oncologist said they are tumours, and the biggest is 5 centimetres, and forget about the bowel. You've got 7 tumours in your liver on both sides of your liver, and it's inoperable because of where they are. We'll send, I think there was then this liaison with the QE in Birmingham to the liver surgery department, and they were, we can't operate where they are. Your liver's got 2 blood flows. And so I think then, you've got to really regroup. It does feel like you're hanging off the edge of a cliff by your fingernails. Nobody else is in that scenario, just you. Even the people around you are not understanding fully where you are in that sort of position. But you've got to have the mental agility to develop a strategy, a plan, and you're not sure whether that plan's going to work, but you've got to have belief, you've got to have positivity, you've got to have an aptitude as a starting point. And I put it out there. I've got cancer, and you get loads of people coming back with all sorts of things. I'll go and buy a sports car. Go on holiday, as though it's your last few
your
months,
last hurrah sort of thing. Yeah.
And I think
that's not in your nature, though, is it? You're a fighter.
No, I think there were some bits of advice that were really important. One of which, was communicated to me through my boss, who'd driven all the way across the country to come here. Mark Jarrett was great, still my boss, and brilliant bloke. Yeah, exactly. And we had a fellow director, Paul Wilton, in the department. And Paul had recommended, when Mark had told him when I had cancer, Paul had said, my dad is on this drug, and it's an antibody drug. Martin wants to ask his oncologist about it. So I did ask my oncologist about it, and the oncologist said, well, it does work in 50% of cases, but we don't know if you're in the 50%. And I said, well, why am I telling you about this drug? Why aren't you telling me about this drug? So I ended up going on to that drug as well as chemotherapy. So they put me on chemotherapy as well as cetuximab, this other drug.
So you had 16 sessions of chemotherapy, is that right?
Yeah, chemo's no picnic. But I think, again, it's how you approach it, really. A session of chemo, oral tablets, but also then intravenous. Plus you're having intravenous of this other drug. You come out feeling like your eyes are on the stalks, and you've been injected with something, and then all the other injections and stuff you have around it. So you have anti-sickness, you have histamines, you have all sorts of antibiotics. I was on a daily antibiotic, but you're talking thousands of milligrams of poison really being put in your body, because chemo is a poison, but it's very targeted poison. And then the other piece of advice, which was amazing, a very good friend of ours at the time, recommended this cancer nutritionist, Joe Gamble.
Yeah.
And, I remember thinking, well, my mate's a nutritionist, why is this one any different? But I made contact and she was like, we are going to starve the cancer cells. It will enable the chemo and the antibody drug to do its job. You will really starve those cells because cancer cells take oxygen from your blood. They start feeding. Normal cells take oxygen from your blood.
Mm.
Cancer cells behave differently, so they're taking things like insulin from dairy products. They're taking refined processed sugars,
just fattening themselves up, making themselves stronger,
and then multiplying in the same way. So I think.
So that diet piece, and I know.
Yeah.
I think, but maybe for the guys watching, how important that is. What did that involve? So it's like no alcohol, no. You cut all the meat out, dairy.
Yeah, I think. I mean, there's a lot.
And no one size fits all. Is that right?
No, exactly. It was very tailored. I think the dietitian very much, gets into the detail of what drugs you're being prescribed, what the blood results are saying. So really getting to understand, what your immune system is doing, that type of thing, and then fitting a diet around that. So, I would say non-acidic. It was quite alkaline. Certain vitamins. I think it was very much taking dairy out, but you could replace that with other things. Taking any refined sugar out. Mm-hmm. Lots of organic vegetables, lots of organic meats, but white meat or fish, and then I think buffalo steaks were on there for some reason, but I never found where anybody sold them. So very healthy diet plan. And then, lots of...
That runs concurrently with the medical treatment as well, so it works in parallel. And Joe was liaising and seeing all your...
regular calls. And then lots of superfoods like, flax seeds or chia seeds and then putting things into your body like organic turmeric. So, trying to get it in quite large quantities, but with black pepper to help absorption into your blood. So there were lots of things like that. I opted to give up alcohol for the year I was ill, and I think that was quite important. And the results just started getting better and better and better and better.
But what was the lowest point? I think you said. I know you've sort of written a few bits about this or told me about this. Was it losing your hair? Was that the lowest point, would you say? And you walked into the office for the first time and everyone sort of turned and looked at you.
Yeah, I think the side effects from cancer treatment, so especially chemo, because it's a toxin really going into your body, you're going almost back a step to go forwards. So your body's reacting. One of the side effects from chemotherapy is diarrhea, sickness. Your hair starts falling out. So you're literally in the shower and you put gel in your hair or whatever, and you get clumps of hair. And in the end, I think with that I opted to. With a friend, he said, "Look, if you're going to shave your hair off, I'll do it at the same time." I know you don't have this.
So I do. I have to shave mine every week. Yeah, I've just got really fine hair.
So, I sat in my mate's kitchen with him, and we both, his other half, just
buzzed you both.
Did it, and I think then at the time we were in the office a lot more. Probably because it was prior to agile working. But
so you carried on throughout your where you could, you carried on working.
Yeah, I worked. I had the option to stop working completely, and I think we're fortunate we've got insurance policies and things that allow you to do that. But I opted to work. I thought with cancer it's very important to maintain a focus and a distraction, to avoid any negativity, to keep focus on positivity. My job has always been a positive. I love my job, so I wanted to carry on working. So, I think the only time I had time off was when I was booked into the QE for an eventual operation on my liver, which was intensive care for 30 hours, and I was off for a 2-week period for that. But other than that, I carried on working.
Flight or fight, isn't it? And it's you took the approach of fight, I would say, in this battle.
Yeah, I think everybody's cancer's different, and everybody's cancer's at a different stage, and probably everybody's side effects are slightly different as well. So I think, you've just got to sort of regroup. I had other side, but yeah, going back to the hair, I walked into the office, coming out of the lift, you're walking into an environment where there's 100 people that are probably going to look at you and think, he's the guy with cancer, and I think the hair is quite a stigma part of cancer. You lose your hair if you're having treatment. So I think it was quite daunting when you walk through out of the lift, through those doors into an office. It was quite daunting, and it was brilliant. So many people were supportive and everything else. So yeah, there were other side effects, like I had cuts on the soles of my feet, like paper cuts where I couldn't walk. As I say, sickness. I found with sickness to eat more was actually the way of combating the sickness. Yeah.
Okay.
So
wow. But then like you say, the tide turned against the cancer, which was fantastic news.
Yeah.
The results came through.
Yeah.
And then they could start to operate, or
so
the tumour had been destroyed. So
I think this strategy of diet, high intensity chemo rounds, I'd say the diet had a really good effect, because they won't give you chemo unless your bloods are in the right position. Bloods are always good. The immune system, because you're not meant to go out with chemo. They give you a card that you can get sepsis, etc., from infections. We had, when you walk into our house, we had face masks. It was almost like COVID. We had hand sanitizers, because we're trying to limit the bacteria. But I was so confident in my blood results because of the diet and the immune system that I was actually going out. I didn't get ill the whole time I was on chemo, and I was travelling around and going to client meetings and
I remember you coming
things like that.
Yeah.
So I think very interesting. The whole episode really.
So, and you touched on it there. So you got the tide was turning.
Yeah,
it enabled them to operate on your liver, which was a secondary cancer.
So the results, the main focus was the liver. So while I'm going through all this treatment, you'd have CT scans. So you'd have a CT scan every 3 months. They'd send the results to the QE, and then I think I was diagnosed in the May, and it got to something like the March or the April the following year, and the QE was like, we can only now see 3 tumours, and they're tiny. So, and the biggest tumour had been 5 centimetres, and it had shrunk massively. So not only they could only see 3, they were shrinking massively. So I think everything had shrunk by the October, and then by that following April, then everything had shrunk massively again. So it was just this continual curve of smashing the cancer. And then my oncologist said, look, you're in now for a liver op. Don't bother with private, go NHS. I ended up on a ward with 4 other patients in the same room, all in very serious states of liver issues. And I was nil by mouth, I was ready to go in, and then a child had been brought in to have a liver op by air ambulance, and I got sort of just told, your slot's gone. And I thought, okay, well, when will it be? In a few hours? And they're like, no, you've got to go home, you're back to the bottom of the list almost. So I just phoned up Bupa and I said, look, get me in. And they got me in on the Sunday. and had the most amazing surgeon. They took away, I think, 20 to 25% of my liver. From what they took away, they couldn't find any viable cancer cells. It had all been destroyed.
Wow.
Just deposits, from the residual cancer. So there was nothing to test. Very, very rare.
But also the primary as well, didn't?
Well, I think that was the liver. So the liver was obviously secondary. Bowel cancer, you have a primary, which is the bit looked like the Malverns with the blood coming from it. Bowel cancer spreads to often a major organ, the lungs or the liver. So, in my case, it was the liver. So the secondary was the liver. So it was bowel cancer metastasized to the liver. So it wasn't liver cancer, it was metastasized cancer. So I think, I had this great news then that, they thought they got everything.
In remission, sort of, yeah.
In that respect, but then you then referred to the bowel surgeon, and the bowel surgeons then, you sign the papers to go in and have part of your bowel removed.
Yeah.
And when I woke up, he said, it's amazing. I've not had this before, where the whole thing has disappeared. And he said, it's a complete response, same as the liver. And he said,
Did you kiss him?
I didn't, but he's a lovely bloke, Simon. Yeah. He's really good.
Yeah.
And he then said, well, I've spoken to... So the QE, the oncologists and the surgeons get around the table to look at all the cases. And with mine, half of them said take out the area where the cancer was.
As a precaution,
so I would have had a stoma. And the other 6 said, leave it, just monitor. And they said, it's up to you. And I opted. I said to Simon, what would you do? He said, well, there is no sign. We'll just monitor you. If it comes back, we'll get you in, boom.
Yeah.
So that's what I opted to do. So, I had a big scar from a liver operation, but no operation on my bowel. And then they check me every 3 months with CT scans, which moved to every 6 months. And then after 2 years, it went to annual. And then after 5 years, they don't bother.
Where are we now then?
So I do have a scope every 3 years now with the bowel surgeon. So, they give me a sedative, they give me a CT scan.
But all good?
All good so far. You never know what's around the corner, but
And am I right from our drive to Newcastle? Because you provide you get involved. Not get involved. You're not a medic, but you do assist people who is it on that bowel piece in terms of. I vaguely remember you saying something in the car. I know you help other people with cancer, maybe share your experience, your diet, your thoughts, your positivity, etc.
Yeah, so I do a lot of that. I think each year there's 5 or 6 people that come to me in some way. So it's either through friends who've got a relative who's got cancer, or it's sort of through articles that have been published about me, or through a book. I think, there's a number of, and none of it is just exactly the same as what I had, but there have been some that have had exactly the same diagnosis, but all sorts, breast cancer, whatever, lots of different forms of cancer coming, and obviously, our good colleague, Johnny.
I know you try to help.
You try and help, I think, wherever you can with, this is how you've got to develop a mental starting point. This is how you probably can push into diet. This is how you can, make sure you got that positivity, that focus, distraction, that drive, determination. And I think we're all in the departure lounge. It's just, you're prolonging your flight as long as you can sometimes, but I think it's different for every single one, and sadly some of those people aren't with us now. which is a horrible thing. But I know a lot of those people I've tried to help, they did, extend their time here as long as they could. And it's I do think diet makes a massive difference, and I think how you approach it, it's almost like training for an Olympic event. I've not been in the Olympics, but if you were to say, right, the Olympics in 4 years, and I've got to start training, what's the regime?
You're not going to go to Mackey's and have sugar every day and drink loads of beer, are you? You're going to have a strict diet, you're going to train, you make your body stronger.
Yeah, and have a regime where you're going to hit every tablet, you're going to hit every good bit of diet, you're going to hit everything you've got control over in that strategy, so in your battle plan.
Yeah, no, superb. So, phenomenal story. It's a pinch me moment, isn't it, really, I suppose? But the positives we touched on, but that took you on to a further step in terms of what you wanted to, I suppose, give back, and you touched on it with losing your hair. So it's something that you've set up. Within Colliers, you wanted to create a event. Is that?
Well, Treasure Quest, I think you're talking about.
I am, yeah. So the Little Princess Trust and Treasure Quest, which I know is your, from a Colliers perspective, your baby, shall we say?
I think at the time I'd been given the all clear, which is an amazing thing. You're a bit, I think, emotionally numb. You're a bit lost. You're just like, oh my God, I've just been through this for however long. Medical processes, operations, needles every day, whatever it is. Suddenly there's nothing. And I'd had great support, I think, as I mentioned earlier. So I came up with this sort of idea for an event, which was to say, right, we'll just collectively have a laugh, fancy dress. We'll start somewhere like Worcestershire and we'll end up in Wales.
It would be Wales, though, wouldn't it, Martin?
It would be Wales, because obviously I'm Welsh. And,
half. You half Welsh, Martin?
Wales are going to win the World Cup rugby as well. My parents are Welsh, and Hereford, pretty much in Wales. I think it was once, and the English stole it, but
Move on.
No,
and you wanted to give something back to, and like you say, perhaps fill that void.
Yeah. So, and it wasn't a Colliers event when I came up with it. I think it was very much a thank you to the people around me. A lot of them were colleagues from Colliers. I had some great support from some people, and I think then people outside of Colliers, and I think everybody was just thankful I was.
You were still here, mate.
Still here.
Yeah,
and
totally.
then let's do this wonderful thing and raise some money.
Yeah.
So it's fancy dress, any mode of transport, 5 counties. Clues I'd set then across the 5 counties.
And it's generally annually held in which month? Little plug. You can do a little plug, because I know we've got one coming up this year.
8th of October this year, and it starts at Shelsley Welsh Hill Climb, and then it sort of ends sort of over at Baskerville Hall in Cliro, and it was an event that we then gave money to a charity I thought represented what I knew to be one of the hard things with cancer, which was losing the hair.
So how did you find the Little Princess Trust? I know that they do an amazing job, but how were you connected with them?
So I think initially I thought, right, I'm going to try and find a cancer charity. I started drilling down into that, and then I was just thinking if I could find something, when a child loses their hair, it's 100 times worse. You've got to walk into a playground.
Children are horrible, aren't they?
And, they've got no filter, children sometimes, or responsible rationale sometimes in their comments. So I saw this charity, and it was, we make real hair wigs for children who've lost their hair through cancer treatment. And I thought, that's the charity. So I thought I won't really engage them. I'll let them know we're doing the event, and then we'll get
some money.
Whatever we raise, a couple of grand, we'll give it to them.
Yeah.
We actually raised, I think it was about $8,500 that first year. and gave it to them. And I think they even came to the finish to accept the cheque and everything. And then it was like everybody was like, when are you going to do the next one? When are you going to do the next one? So
you'd released the beast, as it were.
Yeah, so then we did the same thing the following year and the following year.
And you now or the event has raised, what, £90,000, is that right?
Well, it more than that. Yeah, it became... I think we had COVID, so we paused it for a while.
Yeah.
And then after COVID, I think there was sort of a drive from Colliers. This is quite popular. Can it become a bit of a signature event for the office? And I think that was the natural progression. So it very much is a signature event for the Birmingham office. Lots of different departments take part. I think it's evolved. There's probably about 60, 70 people take part in it each year.
There's a lot of organisations. Or have you got a committee of people that help you? Or
so there is a committee of people now in the Birmingham office. Steph is amazing. Steph does a huge amount of work for this. There's Simon Summerby. We've had people like Lee, helping. Emily and Vals, people trying to get items in for the auction element.
Yeah.
But the actual clue setting, the structure of the event, the marshalling is my mum and dad. I think, then I'll conduct the auction at the end and draw the raffle, that sort of thing. So I think, it's very much still something I'm keen to drive. We're now at this year will be number 9.
Right.
We've raised £111,000 so far.
Fantastic.
So this one we're hoping to get up to 130 overall, and then the final one will be next year, which will be Treasure Quest number 10.
Right.
And I think 150 is our overall target to have raised, over the 10 Treasure Quests. So. It's good fun. You should come along.
Yeah, no, we'll do. I know we've sponsored you and supported you where
definitely.
we can. So no, that's great. Fantastic though. The Little Princess Trust, they awarded you the 20th anniversary Outstanding Contribution Award. Their 20th anniversary ball. Is that right?
Yeah. So
quite a moment. What does that mean to you?
Well, I think I can't remember what year it was. I think it was 2019. At one of the Treasure Quests, was it 2019? I think it was 2019. They announced to everyone, we're making Martin an ambassador of the Little Princess Trust, which is quite an honour. I think they have a few well-known ambassadors like Chesney Hawkes and Princess Diana's nieces, that sort of thing. So I was honoured to become an ambassador first and foremost. And then I think with Treasure Quest, it's quite unique for them as an event. They attend and enter a team each year now, which is brilliant as well. So they love the event as a charity. And then they had a 20th anniversary ball last November, which was just to celebrate the fantastic work they've done as a charity. So they... I think it's over 20,000 wigs that they've provided to, and each wig costs £700 to produce. It's hand woven. A child will get an option of choosing one of 3 wigs. So you can choose they're all different colours because the hair samples come in from all over the world. And then you take that wig to a stylist, really good stylist, hairdresser, that are affiliated to the trust, and they will style that wig to suit what you want. So the process is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And the amount of money then they've put into childhood cancer research, places like Birmingham University, is just phenomenal. So as a charity, they're injecting all this money back into research, trying to pioneer, why are children getting cancer, So, and I think when they started investing in that type of research, there weren't enough people, all charities, all money going into childhood cancer to the same extent as adult research. So they do a great job, and
And they've got a website, so I'll put the website in the chat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, please do.
But also, raise more money. Fantastic. How do people get involved if they want to in terms of the event that you?
Yeah, so they
reach out to you, or in terms of entering a team, or have we,
Yeah, so I think look, they love the event. Sort of go back to the point they awarded me this outstanding contribution award last year, and I was honoured to get that. I think the more money we can raise for the charity, the better. It's great what they do. I think if people want to be involved in Treasure Quest, then you can donate items for the auction. So we have hotel stays, or we have trips in planes or karting experiences, whatever it might be. That's a good way to get involved. We actually offer corporate sponsorship, so we have start-finish banners.
Okay.
So we can put people's logos on the start-finish banners. So I think it's about £350 to put some money into the Just Giving page to get your logo on the start-finish banners.
Yeah.
So yeah, we and then if teams want to enter, I think it's about £100 a team, so you can have any number of people in the team.
Yeah, good. I'd say good value, but it's.
Yeah, I mean, I think
everyone's asking for money, aren't they? So it's difficult to allocate who do you give money to, but those sort of levels, have some fun, great day for an absolutely amazing charity. It's not,
I think that's the thing. It's people just always have smiles on their face. They're in fancy dress, so for one day of your life, you're making a little bit of a fool out of yourself in fancy dress. But if you think what a cancer patient goes through, especially a child, and that scrutiny you get, the scrutiny you get in fancy dress is nothing compared to that. So I think, everybody's in fancy dress, and there's lots of different themes. There's, you can come in whatever costumes you want as long as it's appropriate. But I think, the day. The clue stops are very well chosen. They're out of the way. They're in the middle of nowhere. Some great venues, and the venues are great that support this. And then the end venue, we have a function room. People stay in the locality.
That's where you do the auction, etc. In the draw.
There's a bit of food laying on. It's nothing.
And some bad karaoke, I believe.
Yeah, there's an auction. There's a raffle. There's prize giving, and then we have some very bad singing. But Treasure Quest is over by then. It's more a case of whoever's there.
Have some fun.
And have a drink and relax.
Well, I'll drop all the links in the chat and see if we can hit that target maybe this year. And,
brilliant.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Really good.
But you never want to settle, are you, Martin? You never want to just sit back and have maybe a small wine, because you mentioned to me you've started a new business academy in the department.
Yeah, I think new business is something I love. I think how do you install those skills of new business in some of the younger people coming through? And there are some great people who, if they had exposure to new business, would really be emboldened and would be very successful. And we've had some great examples of that. So I was lucky to go on a license to lead Spark course through HR learning development, where you had to come up with a big idea, and my big idea was New Business Academy, and we ran one in 2023 after piloting it with a couple of individuals, and some of those individuals nationally that came and did that New Business Academy have gone on. Alexia in my team was at MIPIN earlier this year, as our representative from IPM, and really using all the skills that she's learned from that, and obviously that she's got anyway. So I think it's really important. I love that type of thing. We're doing something jointly now at the moment with building consultancy, rating, IPM, and learning development to try and roll it out as more of a structured model. So I think
you love a challenge. You love you love to give back.
Something different. Yeah,
so it's fantastic. I mean, just an amazing story. You know, as I say, you sort of hide your light under a bushel a little bit. So, Martin Edwards, get involved in Treasure Quest. Music. So we're on the Shedcast. So we have a power tune.
Oh, okay.
So we've got a playlist. What would be what starts you up in the morning? What is your go-to power tune?
I mean,
you can have a few if you want.
I don't put music on per se in the morning to get out of bed. No. But if I'm in a car with the roof down or something, and you can put on a tune. Love Jan Hammer, Miami Vice.
Oh, put it there. Love that
theme tune.
Have you still got the suit?
I did. I think at the age, probably I was at sixth form or first year 6. I think I did try and emulate Don Johnson's fashion sense a little bit with
socks.
The espadrilles and the linen sort of suits.
You haven't got a crocodile in
the beige. No, I haven't. But I have got the speedboat in the garden. Yeah. And
I love a bit of Miami Vice. It's our era, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think those two would probably stand out as probably good songs.
Okay. Well, we'll add those to the Spotify playlist. I like them both. So thank you very much, Martin. It's been an inspiring, thought-evoking conversation. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule.
No, thank you.
But also thank you for sharing all that, personal information. But I think the great thing is the great stuff you do for Treasure Quest, but it's your ability to share that experience hopefully helps somebody else. And I know you're all about helping other people, aren't you?
Yeah, I think if you can have, and we were talking about this earlier, if you can have conversations with people like we did in the car when we went up to Newcastle, I think, it's creating time to have those conversations and to try and help people if you can and support people. So I think, I'm all for that. I even wrote a book, which got published to try and help men who'd had a similar experience to me, because I didn't think there was enough for men out there, in terms of inspiring them to pick up something with a hidden message underneath. But look, it's really important that we get the message out there and we talk to people and try and support each other as humans wherever we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, well, that's the end of this Shedcast. Please give us a like, give us a thumbs up, share the Shedcast love, share Martin's, approach on life is what I would say. But thanks once again, Martin. Until next time, we'll see you on the Shedcast. Toodaloo. Stay frosty.